Hello, Dr. Kirk and COMS 622 classmates. Welcome to Chapter 3 of our text dealing with individual differences. I'm not going to ask you to take notes, but please have a piece of paper and pen or pencil handy for a quick exercise we'll do later in the presentation. You know, each person in God's beautiful world is unique. We're like a jigsaw puzzle. We have many pieces that make up the whole of who we are. Think about that as we go through this discussion. Please advance to the next slide. Individual attributes are characteristics that vary from person to person. And when we're part of an organization like a workplace, the whole of who we are is only a piece of the bigger puzzle of that organization. Given that each person in a workplace is so different, you can see the challenges for leaders and managers as they try to first just recognize those differences in people and then try to understand them and manage them. Please advance to the next slide. The concept of fit is relevant in jobs and organizations, and there are various types of fit. There should be a good fit from a person to a job. If you are a people person, you're not going to be really happy, stuck in a cubicle, not interacting. But if you're uncomfortable around a lot of people, working at the drive-thru of a fast food is going to be very challenging for you. There should also be a good person to group fit. If you have to work on a team like most people do, there needs to be some congruence with you in that group. Otherwise, the focus will be on the discomfort and the bad relationships, and you won't get to the goals and mission of the organization. There should also be a good person to organization fit. There's a lot of talk today about organizational culture. This is really relevant. If you prefer a more formal work environment, being in an extremely informal culture would be challenging, and vice versa. I knew someone who went to interview for Amazon, and they were told, we do not dress up here, do not dress up for the interview. And they still felt like, I have to dress up, and they went to the interview and everyone at the table was in jeans and t-shirts, and they felt overdressed. There should also be a good person to vocation fit. I'm a career coach at a community college, and I deal with this a lot. Students will come in and say, my mom says I should go into nursing, that's where jobs are, good pay. And later in the conversation they'll tell me, I can't stand to touch people, or I don't like blood. Nursing's not a good choice for you, but there are other jobs in the medical profession that are. Please advance to the next slide. So one way to determine good fit is to really understand the organization that you're applying to. And a lot of companies don't tell in the job description or won't tell in an interview what it's really like to work there. Increasingly that's changing, and that's good. If you understand the good, the bad, and the ugly about an organization, it gives you an accurate job picture and might help you not make a bad decision, and the company as well. This builds trust between job seekers and employers. Please advance to the next slide. Another way to understand fit is to look at personality. Personality is defined by psychologists as a relatively stable set of psychological attributes that distinguish one person from another. There's been a lot of debate in the world about whether it's nurture versus nature, or do we inherit what we're like from our parents, or are we shaped by our environment? And in reality, both biological and environmental factors play a role. Psychologists have identified thousands of personality types and attributes, and so they've developed frameworks and assessments for trying to understand these. We're going to consider two of those. Please advance to the next slide. The Big Five framework in our book talks about 5 fundamental personality traits that are important in an organization. Being agreeable, able to get along with others. This includes being gentle, cooperative, understanding, good-natured, and I thought this was congruent with the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians. Extroversion relates to your comfort level in relationships. You know, and it does tend to, extroverts tend to be higher overall, rate higher overall in job satisfaction, but it doesn't mean that having an introverted personality is bad. There are some jobs and careers that lend themselves very well to introverts. Other things like conscientiousness are related to responsibility, reliability, dependability. In career development, we call these soft skills and believe that they can be developed. So some people may have a capacity more for some of them than others, but you can develop good soft skills for the workplace. Then this graphic says stability or being stable, but our text calls it neuroticism, and that really relates to how you deal with negative emotions like anger, depression, vulnerability, and anxiety. And we all have those emotions at times. Some people just can handle them better, experience them less, or some people experience them more. And then finally, openness concerns how open to change people are, and or are they very rigid in their belief system about things? Given new information, it's important to be able to accept and respond to change, particularly in this ever-changing world. I understand that for believers, there's some things that don't change. Please advance to the next slide. Another popular framework our book references is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI. In a nutshell, the MBTI uses 4 scales called preference pairs that assess 4 basic categories. Introversion, extroversion is how we direct and focus our energy. Sensing, intuition is the way we take in information. Thinking, feeling, those are a little bit misleading terms for this, refer to the way we make decisions. And judging, perception is the way we interact with the outer world. Please advance to the next slide. So the possible combinations of those 4 pairs form into 16 personality types that are identified by these 4-letter codes you see on your screen. Full disclosure, I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner. I really like the Myers-Briggs. I'm also certified in several other personality and career assessments. I recognize there are criticisms of Myers-Briggs. Our book I thought was particularly critical. I agree with the book that any assessment should not be the sole basis for hiring or firing or dealing with people in the workplace. But I disagree on the reliability, validity issue with the Myers-Briggs that our book takes, because if we had time, I could show you some research and data that refutes a little bit. I think the Myers-Briggs is useful, mainly for helping people develop self-awareness and to understand how their personality might fit into a workplace and how they react under certain types of conditions like stress. Please advance to the next slide. I'm going to give you a quick activity for understanding preferences. So please take that pen and paper I asked you to have and quickly pick up the pen and write your first name. And then as soon as you've written your first name, please put the pen in the other hand and write your name again. One hand, for most people, is going to be more comfortable. That's your natural preference. If you're right-handed, you're just more comfortable writing right-handed. But if, God forbid, you lost the use of that hand, you could develop proficiency with your other hand, no problem. It would take a little time, but you could develop it. It's the same thing with the preferences in Myers-Briggs. They're just preferences. We all possess all 8 ends of the spectrums, but we have natural preferences toward one or the other. Interestingly, the research shows that over the course of a life, particularly in the work environment, people tend to develop their less preferred preferences over time. So I hope that illustrates that concept for you. I want to take a few seconds and have a little more fun with Myers-Briggs. Please advance to the next slide. If you are a fan of the Big Bang Theory show, this is a personality chart for the characters on the show. Fun. Please advance to the next slide. If you're into Disney, which princess are you? Pocahontas, Cinderella? That's a fun thing too. Please advance to the next slide. Or if you love animals, here's some personality types related to animals. And I thought that was a good way to help you understand just a little bit. Again, I realize these last 3 slides are not scientific. They're not research-based. It's just a way to have some fun. Please advance. There's some other important personality traits related to the workplace. Locus of control refers to do we believe that our behavior has an effect on outcome? Self-efficacy is about self-confidence. Self-esteem is related to our feelings of self-worth. Risk tolerance is, are we overly risky or underly risky? Type A and B, are we sort of driven or given to sort of holding back? Machiavellianism relates to wanting power and control over others. And then bullying is particularly a costly characteristic or trait in organizations because it results in high turnover, more absenteeism, higher workman's comp costs, and stress-related health problems. Please advance. In addition to personality, another factor is intelligence, general cognitive ability, and information processing capacity. This varies among individuals and can affect the way different people do different things. Our book talked about a theory about multiple intelligences, which refers to the idea that there's more than one way to be smart. I agree with this. Some people are more musically inclined, while others are better with words. Some people understand data, while others have spatial reasoning. Some people are good at math, while others are better at understanding the feelings of the feelings of other people. 1 Corinthians 12 talks about differences in people, particularly in spiritual gifts. And the verses say, there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in every one, it's the same God at work. How wonderful He made us all so different so that we can work together more effectively. Please advance. The other really important factor to consider, and the one that's most critical for managers, is emotional intelligence. Some people tend to have deeper levels of emotional intelligence than others, but the research shows these are malleable and can be developed. Our text referenced the FedEx company as a really progressive company that focuses a lot on emotional intelligence. One of their core managerial values is being a servant leader, and they both measure emotional intelligence in their leaders and focus a lot on the professional development to develop this skill set in leaders. Very progressive company. Please advance. And the last thing our book talks about is learning styles. There are different ways to understand, and we all learn and see different, learn and understand and process differently. They reference some of the learning styles: visual, which is learning by seeing; auditory, learning by hearing; tactile, learning by touching; kinesthetic, learning by doing. There are a number of inventories and assessments that can help people learn their learning style, understand their learning style. If you Google learning styles, you can find these online, and that's kind of useful to know and for employers to know about you. Please advance. So here's my question for you. What's the most important quality a manager or leader should possess to effectively manage individuals, particularly in this day of innovation, disruption, and transmedia organizations? Thanks so much for being with me today. I enjoyed it, and I wish all of you blessings as you go forward, particularly those of you who are going to be leaders. I hope you develop your emotional intelligence. Thank you.